Welcome to CyberMAYnia, cyber talks with the brightest minds in cybersecurity. Discussing risks, AI, emerging threats, workforce challenges, and more. With your host, May Brooks.
Hello and welcome to another episode of CyberMAYnia. With me today is the human API, Rachel Arnold. How are you, Rachel?
Doing well, doing good. It's hot here in South Louisiana today. It's not that great. There is a little bit of a breeze, which kind of blows the hottest wind you've ever felt in your life across.
Well, I live in the UAE, so it's probably, I think we're probably getting worse.
I know. That's why you and I are such good friends, though, is because we can relate to each other on an environmental level.
That's true. That's true. But the thing is here, usually, you see, I'm with a jacket. It's too cold.
Yeah.
Like, I lowered the air condition I put it up to as far as it goes, but it's still too cold for me. Yeah.
Oh, no. That's terrible.
It is. And you can't turn it off. But that's the UAE. Well, we always start in the same way, these conversations, with you telling us a little bit about you, yourself, and what you do in this crazy world we call cybersecurity.
Sure. So as you mentioned already, I'm Rachel Arnold. One of my fun internet personas is the human API, which basically is indicative of how I perform professionally in our industry. So I got started in the industry exclusively about, 2024 now? So
Yeah.
six years ago? 6 years ago? Coming out of a different industry where I perform similarly in my capacity. So I am very good at having lots of conversations with lots of people. And through those conversations, there'll be little things that my brain does magically where I'll put little bookmarks in something somebody will say, and it'll be something innocuous. Like it'll be, oh, I really enjoy fishing, and not the PH kind, like the actual kind. And then I'm working on this identity access management problem and I want to tackle it in a new way, or it could be anything industry related or not. But then as I go into the next conversation with the next human, I will pull up things that I remembered you said 6 months ago and start introducing people because of it. I actually introduced you and Ryan Cloutier together.
Who was the first guest here on the show.
Wow, fantastic.
He was?
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. It was great. It was funny because Ryan reached out to me out of the blue about 6 months after I made the introduction. He was like, have you talked to May? And I was like, so May was my friend first. I just want to
True. Yeah, so that's exactly what you do, those connections. And I think that's so unique in our industry.
Yeah.
And
I know some people do it here and there, but I know a lot of people are very linearly focused on their own priorities and stuff like that. And it's just the way my spicy brain works. So I am neurodivergent. I have ADHD, right? I go real fast.
Yeah.
But
Same.
internally, I go real fast. So there's sometimes, especially whenever in conversations like this one or like my own live stream, I'll take long pauses, and it's not because I don't know what to say. It's because I'm choosing which thing to say. I don't know if you can relate to that, but yeah.
I can. Maybe we should start a podcast about being ADHD in cybersecurity. I think we have a lot of ADHD people here.
We do.
In this industry.
It's a brilliant superpower to have. I mean, it's great to be neurotypical in the space because the ADHDers, we need you because we can't organize our thoughts too often. You okay over there?
Yeah, I'm fine. Knocking over my glasses and things like an ADHD person does.
Right? Exactly.
See?
No, you're good. I just want to make sure you're okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
May, did you break it?
No,
Okay,
not
good.
this time.
But anyhow, so yeah, ADHD, that's super fun. So that's part of, I really think that's a lot of how I build those connections. And then as my role with Secure Nation, which is this white glove service sort of reseller, right, that actually adds value, right? We don't just push paper. We actually do things with you and your team to make sure that you
Yeah.
don't experience huge amounts of, buyer remorse 2 or 3 years down the line after you've spent all this time implementing something that you find out you were shoving a round peg in a square hole, right?
Yeah.
We're like, we're gonna avoid that as much as possible. So I also connect people to technology that they may need. So thus the human API was born. I've
Yeah.
worked with teams all across the US, from East Coast to West Coast, up, down, left, right, over. Large enterprise predominantly. I do small and medium business as well, which comes with its own sort of challenges, especially where resources are concerned. So I also am very well connected and into free resources. I like a lot of those. And just kind of helping out, man, helping the community out and either connecting them to technology, professional services, each other, mentors, peers. I used to run roundtables where there was no agenda whatsoever other than I would talk to different C-suite executives within our industry. And I was like, you know what? Your personality is very similar to this person's personality, or you guys are working on the same challenge, or if you've experienced the same things, I think you should be friends, and then connect them together as well so that they can also kind of share their knowledge and wisdom with one another and have that sort of experience.
I love that. So we can call you also the cyber matchmaker.
I made a match between I didn't mean it was on accident. It's just the magic things that happen around me. So I don't know if you're allowed to say, get his permission first, but
Yeah.
he's getting married. He got engaged
Oh, that's so
to
exciting.
a friend of mine named. They met because me and John Davis brought them together at GERCON. We stayed all in the same house when we were there at that conference, and they had a friendship that flowered and has now developed into a serious love match. I'm like, oh,
Oh, that's so sweet. See, so you are the cyber matchmaker.
in that capacity.
Yeah, see. Okay, so I want to talk about your career because, as you said, you pivoted from a different industry to the cybersecurity industry. And I want to ask you a little bit about the key challenges you faced in the early stages of your cybersecurity journey. How did you overcome those challenges?
So some of the challenges that I really encountered early on were just being able to demonstrate the skill set that I brought to the industry minus any technical background and knowledge. So that was probably the biggest challenge for me. It was being able to ask questions and feel real dumb for a long time and be okay with that, right? But again, ADHD squirrel, hyperfocus kicks in, and when I get interested in something, I get interested. I am 1,000% committed to understanding every in and out of it. Like, I will make a mood board about engineering and architecture, right? Like, it's real chaotic.
I do think that ADHD is sort of a superpower, especially in this industry, but
Yeah. Well, and
but I'm biased.
Where it fails is if you're not super interested, it's never gonna stick.
And you're
So,
never going to be at the top of your game. And that's what I tell people when you said mentorship. And we'll talk about mentoring towards the end of this show. But when people ask me, I want to go into cybersecurity, my first question is, why? It's not an easy industry to be in. You have to absolutely love it
yeah.
to stay on top of your game, to continue learning, to evolve, and without that you're just going to be mediocre. So why would you go into something that you're not going to be good at? That's
So
me.
in previous industries, I was a manager of people, inventories, sales. I managed sales. Also managed a routine client list. So I would check in on clients on a regular basis. And a lot of those skills very easily transferred into my roles that I have been in since joining the cybersecurity, information security industry. So a lot of those things require the ability to read through contracts, understand licensing, understand supply chains, to be able to onboard and teach people how to use new things, to find the resources to do that, right? Because I'm not the end all be all, but I can connect us to all the things we need, right? Human API, there you go again. And it was really the people management I've noticed is the easiest skill to transfer over. Being able to understand and empathize with teams and ask the right questions to discern their needs, the actual needs of what they are trying to accomplish, and to build a program or a plan together to attain that goal. And then
I love that.
it's not me bringing a plan in, it's me bringing our plan to the table so that we can accomplish this vision as one group. That's probably the most transferable skill that came out of previous experience, and the one that is my passion and what it is that I do now is bringing teams of people together to get a goal accomplished, and then just the relaxation that happens on their end, the comfort that they have in getting this thing done, the ease, the lack of frustration, right? Just all of the I love making people feel as many positive emotions as I can. It's my favorite part. And I don't think there's enough of that in the cybersecurity community and industry, because so much of what we do is telling people, no, stop that. Don't do that, right? What did you do? I'm going to quarantine your machine now, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I really enjoy working with teams when I get to communicate with more departments than just the cybersecurity department, when I get to go outside of my department and kind of be that welcome wagon to the other portions of the business, where I'm like, cybersecurity is not your enemy. Information security is not your enemy. We're creating a very safe, digitally responsible place for you to do your work in. And hopefully some of the things that we implement here within this company, you can also take home with you and help protect your kids and your parents, right? Like, I'm in this stage of my life where I have little kids and also am pretty responsible for my parents who are getting on in age. Right. And they will call us quite often and ask for all kinds of stuff. I mean, my partner works in cybersecurity as well, Joshua. And it's kind of what we do all day, every day. But, you know, we've taught our kids from a young age things to look out for when it comes to, you know, online conversations and chats, and being able to ensure that they understand that just because someone says, oh yeah, no, I'm a kid just like you, does not mean that they are a kid, right? And to watch out for those things. Now, do we disable chat everywhere we possibly can? Yeah, we do.
Yeah, that's, well, you know, my kids obviously, I think they can probably go on stage and do it like instead of me if they needed to, because they heard me give the security awareness lectures in their schools so many times. So at least my two elder ones can probably do it themselves. My oldest one is now working on her own, I won't expose her, but both of them are actually working on their own YouTube channels and things. They started working on that and thinking about that. So I gave them an ultimatum. If you want that, great. Finish reading my book and give me a summary of all the risks associated with exposing yourself online. Once I have that summary, then we'll discuss your channel. Now, I know they'll do it, and I know that they're aware, but that's a way of having those conversations with people. And like you said, taking security awareness in many cases, in many organizations, it's still perceived as the no business unit, like whatever you ask them, no. And that's something that has changed to some degree, but the perception has not changed from what I'm seeing. And a lot of people don't really want to ask cybersecurity questions because they're afraid of how we'll react. And I think that's something that we need to change. And you know what? I have two questions. I was trying to decide which one, but I want to ask you both. You talked about the fact that you switched careers and you went into cybersecurity. And I want to ask you if there was a specific moment in time or a specific reason that caused this, that initiated this transition.
Oh, there was. Oh yeah.
Okay.
100%. It was not a strategic move. It was a change of opportunity. The opportunity became available and I jumped in right into the deep end as fast as I could go. And I was like, can I swim? Sure.
But was it intentional? Did you want to go into cybersecurity, or was it just an opportunity and you said yes?
It was an opportunity and I said yes. That's why I think one of the biggest challenges I've had in coming into the industry is gaining those technical chops, right? Because what really interests me, I don't need technical background. I don't need to be deeply technical. Can I ask deeply technical questions? Yes. Will I bring somebody else with me to ask even more deeply technical questions? Absolutely. Especially whenever it comes to any sort of implementation planning or user adoption, right? Stuff like that. The catalyst was I was working for a chemical company, a national chemical company. And one of the things that I did on a regular basis was I would go customer to customer on I think it was every 4 weeks rotation, like a monthly basis. And I would check on chemical titrations for machines that my company would rent to them. I know how to change a commercial dishwasher motor. Okay.
That's a very useful skill.
Isn't it though?
It is. I don't know why it would be useful, but I think it will be useful at some point.
So there was an instance where I was working in a customer call and I got a very caustic, concentrated level of chemical due to a faulty dispenser into my eyeball.
Ouch.
Thought my eye was going to melt out of my head. I can't wear my contacts anymore, so glasses as it is. And that was the catalytic moment that made me go, maybe I
need to do something else.
Maybe this isn't as great as I was hoping it was going to be, right? That's when you question all your life decisions. And I was, my husband already in cybersecurity. I assisted him and I didn't want to. I'm not going to say I was that happy spouse that was like, let's go study for all your certifications and your degrees together because we're best friends. No, I didn't want to. I did not, but I did it. I did it anyway. So I knew a lot. I knew a lot of the technical pieces. I knew a lot of the acronyms already. It's a conversation that already happened on a daily basis. And it was something that I was interested in from a security awareness standpoint. I didn't understand that I was interested from a security awareness standpoint just because I didn't have sort of that understanding of the topic, the jargon, right? But I was constantly preaching to others what was possible for threat actors to do to them just from Facebook, right? It was like, you need to be safer about this. We'd have single friends that would check in every time that they were home. I was like, stop that.
Don't do that.
I was like, don't check in anywhere within a 50-mile radius of where you live. What are you doing? But so stuff like that. But anyhow, so I helped him study quite a bit and had some pieces of that knowledge already. And then whenever I got the chemical accident that happened and told my husband, he was already working with the CEO of Secure Nation. His company at the time that he worked with that person, and they were in a meeting, I think the next day, and it was just top of mind, right, for Josh. He was like, this horrible thing happened to my wife. I'm really concerned, And immediately John Davis was like, he'd met me a couple of times here and there because I'd gone to stuff with Josh in the past, and he knew what my personality was like. He knew what my work ethic was like, and he immediately scooped me up. He was like,
that's fantastic. I absolutely love that.
But is this the time that you would like to change careers? Because I would love to give you a job. I was like,
well, and I love the story because it goes back to the fact that it's all about people. It's all about people. It's all about networking. It's all about connections. I think that the last time I actually had to submit my CV and go through an interview process was for my first position coming out of my military service.
Yeah.
I didn't know anyone. That was the first and last time. That was almost 20 years ago. No,
Yeah.
over 20 years ago? I'm getting older. 20 years ago, yeah. So that was the first and last time I actually had to give out my CV and go through interviews, because the rest of my positions, sometimes I did go through interviews and everything, but it was more of a technicality. People approach me, and I hear that from so many people in the industry because, oh, I know that you're looking for a new position, and I need someone with your skills, or they don't even know that I'm looking, but they'll just give you a call. So I absolutely love that. And I want to talk about the fact you're talking about building and maintaining strong relationships in this industry. And I want to ask you a little bit about the strategies that you use to build and especially to maintain those relationships. Like, how do you resolve conflicts that might happen over time, or challenges that arise in partnerships and working with vendors, working with teams?
Yeah. So let me break that down. Ask me again, because I'm going to have to, you had a couple of questions in one. And I
Oh,
want to
yeah. Oh, you think I can go through it again? Well, first, how do you build and maintain the relationships? And how do you resolve potential conflicts or challenges with your colleagues, partners, vendors, or whatever relationship? I think those are things that people should consider in any sort of relationship they're in, personally or professionally.
All right. Now I've got it. I had to write notes. And this is why I always keep it. Tip number 1, keep a notebook handy all the time.
Tip number 1, I think I should start getting, no. I'm not with this one. Remarkable, for those who don't see. It's a digital notebook. I was eyeing it for probably about a year. And then when I got on the IC2 board of directors, when I was elected, Ita, my husband, asked me, well, this is something we should celebrate. How will we celebrate it? I think I should get something remarkable. And that was like, he knew that I wouldn't buy it for myself. So he was like, I got it. Next day I got it. And it's probably the best present I ever got, because I have so many notebooks like everywhere. And then you can't find anything. And then you're looking, and this is digital. So I can just go to the right folder and I know where everything is. So it's pretty good.
Perfect. I like it. I'm going to, look, let's write that down.
I need to start getting, I think if people from Remarkable are watching or listening, I need to start getting something. Yeah. I think probably like 20 people already bought it because of me.
This is an excellent sponsorship opportunity for the folks of Remarkable. Brought to you
exactly. Exactly. Who knows?
You know that, I'm pretty sure you can do some sort of partnership like that if you have a TikTok and with a shop. You can do a TikTok.
I don't do TikTok. I have a whole lecture of why I don't do TikTok.
I know, which means you know how to do it responsibly enough.
Well, I can, but then I'll have to buy a new phone and a new phone number, and like it's
specifically just for TikTok. Then you got to make sure that you VPN tunnel all the way every time. You also have to look at each update, because they will change something just enough.
Oh yeah, exactly. Now I'm being paid to be paranoid, so it's not paranoia if someone's out to get you. It's fine. Yeah. So let's go back to building relationships.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So yeah, that's the plug for Remarkable, not TikTok. Yes, building. So let's start with, we'll do a story tell. So jumping from coming into this industry. So one of the first things that I had to sit down and do, right, in this sales capacity, this connector, this consultant type role, and finding people to talk to about stuff is sit down and actually dust off my LinkedIn. I looked at a couple of different ways. So whenever I came into it, people were still smiling and dialing, pounding phones, right? And I was like, I thought about this from my perspective. I was like, I'm not answering a phone call I don't know. And then my husband gets cold calls all the time, and they are not well received. at all.
No.
I'm like, no, I'm not doing that.
No.
That's absolutely not going to be a good thing. And then I dusted off the LinkedIn. I had like 7 connections, one of which was my mom, I think. And nobody in the industry besides Josh. So one, I had to research how I was going to navigate through all this, because whenever you start filtering people out in that way via like their industry, IT consulting, networking, network security, internet, right? All these things, you're going to come back with like a million plus thing. I can't connect with that many people. And then it's just blind connecting and I don't know them. And it seems
weird.
It's disingenuous, right? It's just, then you're just collecting names, and I didn't like that. So I started reaching out in a more strategic fashion by looking at different cybersecurity certifications, degrees. I would look at each profile individually. I would discern whether or not they were participatory in community outreach, right? If they went to conferences, if they did speaking engagements, if they commented on other people's posts, if they posted themselves, what type of content were they posting? Were they treating it like a very odd professional Facebook page, sharing personal things that weren't necessarily helpful to the whole wide world, or, that kind of stuff. So using a little bit of, pieces of open source intelligence, right? Just let me see what I can figure out about you based on what you share openly on the internet. And that's kind of how I started connecting with people. And I made a goal for myself on a daily basis. And this is one of the things I recommend whenever I'm mentoring people who are trying to get out into the community and make themselves, a bit louder in the space for job opportunities. Because you have to be able to raise your own flag and tell people, here I am, for them to see you, right? Like, you can't just hide in the background with your little resume in your hand and go, oh, please, right? You got to be loud and proud about it. So,
and I think that's very challenging for a lot of people in this industry.
It is. But what's so great about connecting and networking in a digital fashion is it takes a lot of that social anxiety and that pressure off, right? Because you don't have to say the right thing in the moment. You can sit down and craft something meaningful to say, which some people don't take advantage of that. I don't know. There's some people that I'm like, you should have a license to drive your keyboard and have it revoked.
That's true. That's true.
This was not carefully thought out. So started those first round of connections. And again, it's something that I definitely mentor other people to do, to reach out. And then once you kind of get those baseline connections in there, then you need to start looking for events that you can attend, right? To build these relationships. And when you go to in-person events, don't shy away from the vendor section. The vendors are there because they are being paid to talk to people. Go talk to them. They would love it.
And they want to talk to you. And sometimes those are very meaningful conversations.
They really are. And you can learn a lot. You can learn about capabilities that you didn't know were available in the industry. You can learn about their journey, their career path. There's so many things. There is never a conversation that I have ever had that I didn't learn something or improve myself afterwards. Like, there's never been one, ever. I've never walked away from like maybe a sales opportunity type call where they didn't purchase something, or we didn't start to plan for that purchase or anything else, where I felt like, well, that was a waste of time. Never been a waste of time.
I love that.
Been fantastic. I've always learned something, either about them, about the industry in general, about technology, or networking or infrastructure, something, always. And I take those nuggets back, and I think that's probably what drives the passion around me wanting to connect to people and building networks and relationships. Not the technical networks, but the social ones.
Yeah, I love that.
is
And
the ability.
I'm but I'm sure that you've been working with partners and with vendors,
Yeah.
and you've been in sales positions as well. Well, salespeople get a lot of pressure from vendors. Give me that, get me that deal, get me that client. I need your help. I have to read that quota, whatever. And we know
Yeah.
those conversations happen. How do you navigate those challenges? Those, I won't call it conflicts, but sometimes it can even go to that level, get to that level.
The conflict around reaching a quota.
Not just quota. They have their own motivation. Like I think every person have their own agenda, and that's fine. But
Yeah.
sometimes that's not aligned with your agenda. And when
Yeah.
you work with so many partners and vendors and creating those relationships, I'm sure you encountered those times where the alignment wasn't there.
Oh,
How do
yeah.
you manage that challenge?
One, acknowledge. Acknowledge that there's an issue or a problem or that there is a conflict, right? There's a conflict of interest. If there's a conflict of interest, as in I am not interested and you hope that I am interested, there's I've never been rude. Um, One, always remain kind and polite is number one, no matter what you're doing. Even if what you're about to say may have a negative impact on somebody else, kindness and politeness will go a long way, very long way. I can think of an incident once where I was in charge of kind of building this vendor management program. And there were, coming from a reseller space myself, I understand the actual value that a reseller can bring to a contract or procurement process, or even whenever, you're going along implementation, some of the things that they can assist with. We had a leader that would not disclose the reason, wanted to remove every reselling relationship that existed. So basically wanted me to go out and
Fire partners.
right, wanted to fire them all. Which, coming from a reselling space, you would think, oh no, Rachel, I bet you felt like you were turning on your own people. I did. I really did.
Of course it did.
It was horrible. That part was horrible. But it was what the leader decided was best for the company, and therefore I had to adopt that strategy. Now, those were hard conversations. Very hard. Some of these
I'm
reselling
sure.
partners were partnered with this company for 10 plus years.
Wow, that's a shift in strategy.
It
That
was a
is,
huge shift. Yeah. It was very difficult. And it wound up being a thing where the first thing I did was I was honest. I was like, you have to understand the strategy has changed. It has nothing to do with you or your level of service. You have been wonderful. I can see throughout this relationship, people that have worked with you for years have said wonderful, glowing things about you. And I am happy to recommend you to my large network and connection of people, right? We're going to plan for you to roll off of this account. So I'm going to tell you because right, with like an Optiv or an SHI or Secure Nation, right? There's not one contract that they may be helping to manage. There's like a bunch.
mm-hmm.
So we sat down and strategized and made a plan about how they were going to roll off, when it was going to happen, so that they were part of it the whole time. I had some pushback, but using kindness and empathy, a lot of empathy, I would drop this news bomb on them and I would listen intently, and it didn't matter. I was prepared for it to be very negative and harmful and, just not great. But I stopped and I listened and I asked more questions about that, about how I could help, about what it was that I could do from my standpoint. And they also came to understand the position that I was in. They knew that it wasn't necessarily it wasn't a strategy I was driving. But
Yeah,
it was
that's always challenging when sometimes you don't even agree with the strategy, but
and I voiced those
that's,
concerns
Yeah. And that's fine. You know what? At the end of the day, that's always a conflict between board and CEO and leadership and people in the organization. Like, not everyone is going to like the decisions made by the CEO or by the board or by, you're not always going to like it. But,
Right.
and I do think that integrity also has to play a role. Like, I've been in a position that I was working for a company and they made a few decisions that at some point I said, it's not just that I don't understand or don't agree, is that I think that this is a disaster for the company and for the customers, which made, for me, that was more important. And at some point, I decided to leave. And that was the reason.
Yeah.
Because I said, I think that our clients will be negatively impacted by this decision. And I
Yeah.
don't want to be part of it. I don't think that we're doing a good service for this, for our clients.
Right. Well, that was definitely a case where, we would, whenever it came to these partners, these valuable partners for this company, I wanted to make sure that we had a responsible roll-off plan. I also made sure that they understood that this direction could change at any time. And I also kept record of how they responded to this information so that anyone years from now can go back and look specifically at that relationship and in the notes have very clear understanding of what a great partner they were and make those decisions to perhaps bring them back on board and what it was that they actually did do for the team. So making sure you have those things in place. And I communicated that as well to the partners in this case, which were being asked to please leave. And they're very happy about that. I met a couple of
Yeah.
them for meals, right? Just to hang out, coffee. We had coffee, that kind of stuff, where we could, because some of them were on the other side of the globe. But I would
Yeah.
accommodate them. I would stay up until, 11, midnight, whatever time, so that it was their morning, that kind of thing. Just to really be that support person, even in a terrible circumstance for them from a business perspective. Because it was a very large customer for some of them. It was, yeah, it was definitely was going to impact some folks in a negative way. But with careful planning and letting them know way ahead of time and making some other introductions on the back end and recommending them to other folks that I knew could use their help, it was successful.
I love that story. And you talked about coffees. So, of course, we have to plug in now to
Oh,
the coffee table talk.
the coffee table
Yeah, I
talk.
mean, you mentioned coffee, like ADHD brain, that's it.
Yeah,
But yeah, so you started, I think, was it 3 years ago, 4 years ago? How long has it been?
4 years. It's been about 4
4
years.
years? Yeah, so you have your own show. It's called The Coffee Table Talks. I was there, I think,
Yeah,
twice, right?
yeah. We've
Twice?
been a
Yeah,
guest
it was
twice.
so fun. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And it gets a lot of attention. It's a great show for those who don't know it, and we'll plug in the link below here. I want to start with a question of what inspired you to do this. I mean, having a show and you're doing it live. Have you done it live the entire 4 years?
Yeah, the entire 4 years.
So you're doing it.
Never pre-recorded, never edited, just the way it is.
So that's amazing. And that's a huge commitment. So what sort of inspired you to start this initiative?
So throughout the conversations that I started early on in my career, and remember I said not every call that I went into with a sales mindset became a sales call, right? A lot of times it would become a learning moment for me where due to the grace of whoever it was that I was in front of, they just took a moment and wanted to have a teachable or coachable little snippet, little nugget of happy. So the first inspiration, or where I guess my little light bulb went off, was I was in a conversation with a CISO of a very large telecommunications company that was in the Midwest, Midwest US. And I was, doing my elevator pitch. This is how I can help. This is what I do. This is the things I've done for previous teams. And he was like, I would have loved to have known you 40 years ago. And I was like, wow, that's a long time. to be in the industry, right? I was like, I've never heard anybody say that they've been in the industry for 40 years because our industry's not that old, right? I would assume anyway. And then I started to realize there's a huge difference between information security and cybersecurity, is that cyber means computers, information means information.
Yeah.
This gentleman told me, well, I got started in Vietnam whenever there was a conflict there with the US, right? And I did radio signal intelligence. Well, here's this new thing that I get to go research and look at, and how cool, you guys, you got to look up radio signal intelligence. In the like mid-century is probably my favorite, like 1950s to 1980s, like that kind of era. So cool. And I was like, wow, how did you get into that? Did you like just sign up for the army and you're like, you know what, radios, that's where I'm gonna be? No, he's like, no.
Nope.
The last guy died. The last guy died. He got shot. I was like, wow, that's terrifying. I can't imagine watching the radio signal expert get shot and then be like, you know whose job I want? That one. That's the job I want. But he stepped into the position. Once he left the service, once his time was through, he came back to the States, was looking for work, and actually was invited to contract and build the first networks for NASA launch sites.
Nice.
I was like,
Nice.
wow, like I learned so much history from this. And I was telling my husband about it after the call. I was like, I just had the most incredible call. We scheduled for like 45 minutes. We talked for 3 hours.
Oh, wow. So,
I know. He was like,
and he was your first guest?
And he was my very first guest. And I didn't even have it titled as the Coffee Table Talks then. I wasn't sure what I'd come across. I wasn't really, I didn't really have a direction or much of a plan, other than I just knew that this story would be important to other people. Maybe, hopefully. It was important to me. It was very illuminating and interesting and sent me down so many little squirrely rabbit holes to go research. My husband thought it was really cool too, and he's my sounding board like 90% of the time. He thought it was really dynamic as well. And I had never done a live stream. I'd never podcast. I'd, never done any of those things. And it took me about 4 days, I think, to reach back out to Rich Owen and ask him, hey, I want to redo that conversation we had, but live, so other people can hear. Like, I want to record it maybe. No, I don't want to record it because I want them to ask questions too. Right. And basically what it was I was starting to build out these requirements for whatever thing I was trying to wrap my arms around. I think the first 2 episodes we called the Pioneer series, because my idea was that, I'll come across more like industry, like legends, like these people that have been here forever. That's not true. A lot of them have passed on or don't know how to social media. They don't. So it started that way. That's how it started, was with Rich Owen and the Pioneer series. And then I was like, you know what? I drink enough coffee that it is definitely a part of my personality. And I don't talk necessarily just the ground. Like, I'm going to run out of people. There's only so many people that have broken ground in our industry, right? I don't want to just talk to them. I want to talk to everybody. I have so many interesting stories that maybe other people would find interesting. And those people matter, and they're important, and their journey is just as dynamic as somebody that started in the 70s. Like, this could be really cool. And then COVID started, and I started doing these things called virtual coffee, right? Where I would reach out, and instead of meeting people in person, I was like, let's just have a virtual coffee. I don't know about you, but I'm going stir crazy in my house because I can't leave, and you're not allowed to go shake hands and see each other. Can we just sit and not have an agenda and not do anything other than just chit chat? Is that okay? It's gonna help. It's gonna help my mental health. I hope it might help yours. And so many people were like, yeah, absolutely, let's do that. So we would hang out and we would just have these, again, no agenda, no purpose really, other than just to meet and chat. And we'd get so many great things out of those. Again, every conversation, right? always an opportunity to learn something new, right? Or to change ideas, or to work on ideas, or to be inspired. And I was like, that's it. We're going to call it the Coffee Table Talks. And I think it was episode 3. I had come across Will McCullen, invited him to be a guest. And he was talking about they were building the program at Pima Community College at that point. They got slowed down because of COVID. And I was like, wow, this is great.
It's a great program.
If I had that program available to me in my higher education institutions that I went to, I would have fallen into this faster and probably had way more technical chops than I do now, and been way more interested and enthusiastic about it, right? Because I don't know if this is your experience, but I feel like my experience as a woman in tech, I was never afforded the opportunities to pursue that path, because everybody was like pushing traditional woman-led roles and professions at me, right? You should be a school teacher or a nurse or right? Like these things where women are, been accepted, and it's almost statistical that, every teacher is a woman and every nurse is a woman, kind of thing. I feel like if there was a program like Will's, I would have been in a different place career-wise by now. And I did not want anyone to miss out on the opportunity to hear about programs like Will's because of that.
And we'll link to the episode that Will was here on the show. So I'll link to that episode as well. It was a great episode.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So I want to ask you, but you know what? You're talking about these things, and you're talking about how people should listen to programs like PIMA's to hear about it, to have those opportunities about women. And I want to ask you a little bit about the impact that you felt that having those live coffee table talks had. What's the impact it had on your professional career or in your personal network? Because I'm sure it did.
It did, actually. It gave me a lot more visibility, I think, across our industry as they lived on LinkedIn. Now, I've spread it out to where we don't just do LinkedIn Live. We do Facebook, X, Twitch, and YouTube. And my reasoning for that is that I started to notice not everybody lives on LinkedIn, right?
True.
And then I also started thinking about contingency plans. What happens if Microsoft decides to blow up LinkedIn tomorrow? If they're just like detonate into that, what am I going to do? I need to spread out, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's before X became X and it was still Twitter, which I know a lot of people still call it Twitter. And
I call it Twitter.
And people are like, Twitter's so toxic. I'm like, you must be following the wrong channels.
Well, I don't know. I go on LinkedIn, on Twitter only when I want to get mad or when I feel like picking a fight with someone. I mean, it is very toxic. Yeah, I rarely go. I mean, there is useful data there. Of course there is. But to be honest, most of the people that are writing meaningful things are also on Telegram or LinkedIn or somewhere else. And then I don't see all those toxic people that I really don't want to see.
Oh man, I love curating a good algorithm. I go through and I curate it like I am selecting art for my home. Okay, if this does not bring me joy, we're not looking at it.
Exactly. And at some point I realized that except for very few people that actually produce content that I enjoy and I think and I feel that enrich me personally or professionally, the majority of what I see are just people looking to pick a fight. And I don't enjoy that.
No, that's not fun. I don't. No. I get a lot of. I really like how quick new IOCs will come out. Right, indicators of compromise. People will share those very quickly, or they'll share, CVEs whenever they hit, or just different stuff like that. I use it as a weird pseudo irresponsible threat feed.
Okay.
Sort of.
I get that.
Yeah, well, and it's just because I find that I feel like the community shares more widely there when it comes to that. And then I curate out the toxicity a lot. I choose to turn a blind eye to it. and I'll either
Fair
unfollow
enough.
or I very rarely block because I hate blocking just completely, you know,
Yeah.
do not allow list somebody that I don't know. I get this feeling that if I do that, they may reach out for help and I can't help them. That's sick, isn't it? I'm sick.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to your personality. You're a people's person. When people reach out to you, and you mentioned mentoring before, and maybe we'll end with that. When people reach out to you, you usually engage. I mean, I know you. I'm the same. So, yeah. So I think blocking is a little bit extreme, but I found myself. I actually blocked a few people, very few, but
Yeah,
I did find myself blocking
there's a
probably
handful.
half a dozen in 20 years. So I think it's fair enough. I
Yeah.
think it's fair
My
enough.
only problem is
Um,
whenever they know how to create multiple sock puppets, and then I gotta like,
oh, that's true. That's true. But usually you can recognize them. Like they'll still
yeah,
be those trolls and speaking that tone.
yeah,
Yeah. Um, this is like knowing you and me, we can probably go on for 2 hours, but I do want to be mindful of the time because I hate listening to long podcasts and I'm not going to subject our listeners. I'll just have to have you here again. But before we end this, I always and before the pop quiz, I want to ask you if you could give like one piece of advice because you're working with people, you're mentoring a lot, you had a lot of mentors as well. And I want to ask you like, if someone approaches you now and they want to build a career in cybersecurity and they're looking at you as someone who's done it in a very short period of time, relatively speaking, and you
yeah.
don't come with the classical background and you are a woman in cybersecurity and you're a mum in cybersecurity. And I do
Oh
mention
yeah.
that because you mentioned being a woman in cybersecurity, being a woman, being a mum,
Yeah.
there are challenges associated with that. So I want to ask you, what's one piece of advice you would really give someone trying to build their careers, and it could be male or female, in this industry? What would be like your super important tip that you would give them?
Never be the smartest person in the room. When you find the smartest person in the room, do not engage. They're
Oh, that's
wrong.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, probably
That's
like that.
probably my biggest piece of advice. Also understand that not not one person in our industry is the end all be all expert. They just aren't. And if they claim to be the end all be all expert,
Run away.
run away. It changes so quickly and so fast. You should never be afraid to ask a question. You should never be afraid to not know. And if someone treats you differently or negatively for not knowing something, that's not the person you want to hang out with. And there are so many other people in our industry that are welcoming, empathetic, have that teacher heart, that collaborative heart within themselves. You're not going to miss turning away from that one negative person. You're never going to notice it. So just skip right over it.
I love that. I love that. Rachel, as always, it's such a pleasure having you. And before we wrap this up, I always like to end every episode in the same way with a very short pop quiz, short questions, short answers, whatever comes to mind. No right or wrong
There's
answers.
going to be a test.
I know. I know. So what's the protocol? No, I'm not gonna do it. It's not like that. I've actually been on a podcast that suddenly they started asking me about acronyms from things like CSSP. Now it's a good thing that I'm an instructor because otherwise I wouldn't have remembered most of those acronyms. Yeah, but being an instructor, I kind of have to remember. Okay, so let's start with your number one tip for staying motivated.
Learning new things. As soon as if I come in a conversation and somebody mentions or utters a word that I don't have a great understanding in or anything else, I will write that down and go back later and research the heck out of it. The drive to learn new things. So that's my personal motivation, is a drive to learn new things. Understand and recognize what is your personal driver and then drive it. if you and it doesn't have to be something as lovely as learning new things every day, right? That's so fluffy. That's such a fluffy thing. I understand that about
I
myself,
love that.
right? But if you're motivated every day to make more money, right? That's fine. That's also a good
I don't
goal.
think
That's not a
I
bad
don't
goal.
think it's sustainable. I'm
I
not sure it's
don't,
sustainable.
but some people get real far with it. So it could be. It could be their thing,
Maybe.
right? Or if your personal driver is, I don't know, you want to lead. You're not a leader right now, but you want to be a leader. Wake up every day and do things that improve your ability to be a leader. One, anybody can be a leader. You don't have to have a leadership role, and you can still lead. So, yeah, I think
But
understanding
that's
your
interesting because,
that.
with learning new things, and that's something that I'm very passionate about, there's always something new to learn.
Oh yeah,
But if you're already a leader and in leadership roles, what will I do? Get a bigger leadership role?
yeah.
I don't know. I think that for every person, motivation it looks different, but I agree. Okay. Is there a specific book or movie that you recently seen or read that had nothing to do with the industry, but really enriched you personally?
I got kids, May. It was
True.
Inside Out too. You know it was Inside Out too, right? Like,
I haven't seen two. The kids are terrible. My eldest went with a friend. Then the following day, she took my son and they went together. And now they
yeah.
don't want to go with me. I'm like, why did I even have kids? I mean, someone has to take me. Oh, the youngest. She still likes me.
That's okay. Ours, we didn't actually take ours. What happened was the grandparents came and took ours to a matinee, right? A midday showing of Inside Out 2. They went, told us how great it was. And then on another night when we were kid free, and my husband and I were like, what do we want to do for date night? We were like, let's go see Inside Out 2 because those brats went and saw it before us.
Yeah, I think that maybe that what we'll do. Maybe
Yeah.
that's what we'll do date night. Well, we can do that.
Yeah.
How do you celebrate your achievements?
Personally, personally or professionally?
Both.
I get a parade together and we march up and down my street. No. How do I personally?
I was looking at you like, I wonder if she's serious. I know.
That's what I'm doing in my head. Does that count?
Oh, okay, that's fair enough. Yeah.
No, I walk a little taller. Celebrating my personal or professional accomplishments. So I don't. I go to the next one. I celebrate by opening up the next one. That's what I do.
No.
I might tell a friend. I tell a friend. I celebrate with a friend. I'll do that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. But we have to celebrate our achievements. It's so easy. I mean, that cybersecurity, we always have the next challenge. We have to stop and acknowledge that we achieved something. I mean, I'm very bad at it, so I'm preaching to others. Maybe they'll motivate me to do it more.
That was actually one of the things that I don't go to a lot of interviews, but I hear a lot of information about how interviews go. And one of those questions that always come up in interviews, right? Because I'm like you, May, I get my job roles through word of mouth. Like I've never gone through an actual, it's been so long, I can't remember kind of thing. But they'll ask you one of those questions, what are your strengths and your weaknesses? And, everybody with the weaknesses, they're like, I'm just too good of an employee.
Yeah, I just work real hard. I don't, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
One of my actual weaknesses as a professional is I don't stop and acknowledge my accomplishments. I absolutely don't. And it creates burnout.
So,
It does.
yeah.
It's bad.
So,
It's a thing I need to work on.
it is. I'm working on it. I'm asking this question because I asked this question a lot of the interviewees in this show because I'm trying to get inspired as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm not very good at celebrating my achievements. I'm already thinking about the next one, the next step. And no, we have to acknowledge the fact that we've done something and we've done it well. And I got a remarkable now that reminds me of that all the time.
Good.
Again.
Yeah, how do I reward myself? I don't, and then
Exactly.
I open up. I reward myself with more work. That's bad. You shouldn't do that. Can you
That's
imagine?
bad. That's bad.
We're such toxic leaders for ourselves professionally. Can you imagine if your team leader was like, you got that project done? Great, here's the next one. And like there was nothing.
Yeah.
I've never done
No,
that
you
as a
can't do
leader. I
that.
stop and I celebrate. I acknowledge it. I tell the entire team. I tell the world if I'm able, right? Because cybersecurity, you can't tell everybody. But like, right? We do that, or they get a fun little extra thing or swag, or just, I don't just do one pat on the back. I do 10. Like a bunch.
Exactly. And we need to treat ourselves the way that we treat our employees or teams. Yeah.
This is our weakness.
We'll work on that.
We do.
We'll work on that. We'll
Look,
start.
next time you accomplish something, call me, okay? Call me.
Okay.
And I'll be
Okay.
like, I got my glass of Chardonnay. What you got?
Oh, probably a Pinot Grigio now. I'm really into Pinot Grigio lately. Okay, before we wrap this out, last one.
Okay.
Let me decide on the last one. I know.
Right.
What's the best piece of advice you received throughout your career?
Best
I
piece
love
of
challenging
advice?
people.
Oh, this one, I've gotten so much.
Mm-hmm. You have to choose one because I made the rules.
I don't know if it's advice. I don't think it's advice. I didn't ask for it. It was something that a mentor thrust upon me. And it was, you're going to be a great CISO one day, Rachel. And I had never thought about it. Never.
I love that.
Never thought about it. And it wasn't,
It's not advice, it's inspiration. I like that. I'll accept that.
it was inspiration. And it came out of nowhere. Absolutely. And I thought,
I think you will make a great CISO.
it was the thing that I was like, I wonder what I got to do to get there. Like it moved my goalpost. My goalpost was just help everybody as best as you possibly can. That was it. Like my goal is very vague, and it's not just focus on it. And he in that 1 second put a lot of focus on it. And this is the first time I've ever mentioned I've even thought about it, but I've been thinking about
I like
it.
that.
So you know.
I like that. So
Yeah.
I think that if we take that and put it in a more advice sort of way, is what do you want to be when you grow up, or where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years time, and how do you get there? Are the steps that you're taking today, are they helpful in achieving your goals? Sort of. I'm trying to take that advice. Amazing, Rachel. It was such a pleasure having you here, such an inspiration having you here. You're doing so much, and honestly, I think we could have done like a 4 hours podcast, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to have you here again.
Oh,
And
I like
again.
it. Always.
And
Always happy
again.
to come back and hang out with you. Definitely.
Yeah, so we'll definitely do that. And thank you so much for joining me. And for those of you listening, don't forget to subscribe. There are a lot of new episodes coming up real soon. So I'll see you all next time here on CyberMAYnia.